Welcome back to the 1009 podcast. Been a couple weeks since we last spoke with y'all. We had a little behind the scenes meeting last week, kind of make sure Grayson was off the ledge after his embarrassing loss in the wild card round. Um, y'all probably heard all about the wild card since we last spoke with y'all, and about probably the divisional rounds that happened this past weekend. But I mean, football is king right now. I mean, that's about it. You got basketball still, but it's playoffs, baby.
Yeah, so I mean, at this point, as we sit here Tuesday night, the 24th, we're at the stage where there are four teams left. We're going to kind of walk you through how we got from the initial field of 14 down to the four we have now. Just our general takeaways, especially from the first weekend of playoff action, starting off the playoff slate in its entirety with Seahawks Niners. Pretty predictable result there.
Yeah.
Niners by 3 scores. I think that the only real hesitation there was Brock Purdy in another new environment, and that is the playoffs. But again, regular season matters, and that you win enough games, you play at home a lot, and the Niners did just that. It was a close game. The Seahawks, show they deserve the playoff spot. They led at
First
halftime,
half, it was
17-16.
it was tight,
Yeah,
and then they
so,
just 18-point fourth quarter for the Niners,
right.
and
You can
only
only
6 points in the second half for the Seahawks. So
you can only slow that offense down for so long. I don't
yeah,
care who's at quarterback. We've seen three guys at the helm this year, and they've all done pretty well. So I mean, the
admirable
genius of
jobs.
Kyle Shanahan knows no QB that it cannot be effective with. So moving on from that game, speaking of double-digit fourth quarters,
Get
the
into
Chargers
it.
were up 27-0, and they lost. And I will say this: I was not one of the people that was jumping to Twitter to dog on Trevor Lawrence and elevate Justin Fields. I was one of the people that's a true Chargers fan that knew the game wasn't over. And I think I told everybody that would listen, including Bailey and our other co-hosts who are unfortunately not with us tonight, that the game was not over, especially that TD right before the half. The gift of the fumbled punt by Michael Hasty. We turned into 3 points despite starting on the 9-yard line. That was an early sign of things that I was dreading would come, and they certainly did. The Jaguars scored a touchdown going into the half, and they scored a touchdown every drive after that in the second half, and then capped that off with a field goal to win the game at the buzzer. So, it brought me back immediately to more recently,
Just about every year.
Deshaun and the Texans with a 24-0 lead against the Chiefs in the playoffs, the wild card round a couple years ago, and they ended up trailing at halftime in that game. So I guess
Didn't the Chiefs win the Super Bowl that year, or no?
Probably. This was
When was that?
Early 16, 17.
No,
Not 16.
that was in 2019, 2020, because that's when we were in New Orleans at that time. I remember that because we were watching it.
Yeah, so I think it was like 35-24 Kansas City at halftime,
Yeah.
something ridiculous like that. But then deeper into my childhood and the trauma that the Chargers bring me, we were up 20-something on Peyton Manning at halftime on Sunday night primetime, one game, and proceeded to get shut out the second half and lose 35-20-something. So those two things immediately entered my mind as we gave the touchdown going into the half. And, of course, you guys know how that game ended. A lot of people taking advantage of the Jaguars on the live money line, so congrats for all your money. I did a bit myself, just as almost laughing to myself, like, okay, $5-10, it's not going to happen. And it sure did. So my bar tab was paid. It did not help, but at the time, it was all I knew what to do. So moving into Sunday, the Bills and the Dolphins, you look at a 34-31 game between these two teams, and you don't really bat an eye. But then you realize that Skylar Thompson started this game and played in the entirety. And then you start to have some questions about the Bills. And we'll get to what kind of warning signs that set off going into this past weekend. But opening win for the Bills, probably the least convincing out of any of these. Yeah. I think that if you wanted a disappointment in a win out of this first wildcard weekend, I think the Bills were the top choice there. I just think that for all we hear about, this is the Bills' year, this is Josh Allen, torn UCL doesn't matter. They're going to they're at home, they can't be stopped. I don't know about you, but I mean, have we been giving the Bills too much credit this whole time?
I would say so. I mean, I gave Josh Allen a lot of credit. One, because I had him a couple fantasy leagues, but everybody just kind of looked over the amount of turnovers he had this year. I mean, he was playing good ball. They were winning, but He's throwing a lot of picks, a lot of fumbles. I mean, at some point they're going to come back to bite him. They almost did in this game, and we're going to talk about it later. It happened this weekend. I mean, you have the storybook with the whole Damar Hamlin thing. I think they thought they were all high and mighty, and they got humbled quick this playoffs.
They might have seen a false summit as far as climbing the mountain that is the AFC with the level of quarterback that we have. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert facing off in their first career playoff spots, and that's not even mentioning Allen, Mahomes, Burrow as really the stone set, I think, top three at the moment in the AFC. And then you had a bit of a storyline related game between, like I mentioned, Herbert and Lawrence to kind of sneak into that or take over the fourth spot. So I think firmly top five are those five guys. And then you got Lamar Jackson on the outside looking in, unfortunately, due to health reasons. Otherwise, I think he's right in that conversation too. So, I mean, if you're in the AFC and you have an elite quarterback, that doesn't get you as far as it normally would just because the quarterbacks in that conference are so loaded up and down, essentially enough to fill every playoff spot. So I think that, and we've seen Brock Purdy excel as a late round pick, but I mean, Skylar Thompson was not expected to do anything. This spread was, I believe, 2 touchdowns or north of that.
It was
14 and a half.
Yeah, 13, 14 and a half, something like that.
Right.
Something stupid like that.
Exactly. And I mean, this game was not out of the question on the money line until very, very deep in this game because of turnovers, like you mentioned. So defensive injuries rearing their ugly head for Buffalo again. We saw some of that midseason actually surrounding a Dolphins matchup. And that
was with a healthy Tua too.
Right. I think that, I don't know. I mean, this Bills team, when you really step back, zoom out, look at it, I mean, I just don't know. I mean, it looks like Chiefs Bengals is the matchup we're looking at to be like the next Brady Manning instead of the Bills and one of the two teams. So I think that something's got to give here with the Bills. They've got to figure something out. I don't know if they need like a seance. I don't know what they need. They've got to figure it out.
Yeah.
There's some sort of curse. I mean, this is the same franchise that lost 4 straight Super Bowls, so there's precedent here, but they're not even getting to the Super Bowl at this point. So I think that Josh Allen still need a quarterback, hopefully. Should the elbow require surgery, he gets that done early in the offseason. He's good to go by training camp. But I think that they brought in Stephon Diggs for a reason. I think he's one of the best receivers in the NFL. They've got talent on defense. The running back position, they're still kind of tinkering with. I don't know if they addressed that in the draft or not, but I just don't know. At this point, you go 7-1 at home, and then you lose a home playoff game in the snow. I mean, you ask them to pick conditions. I'm jumping ahead a bit here, but I'll reel it back in. You ask any Bills fan, what weather do you want to play in? They say snow. And to drop that a week after this performance in the wild card round, that really gave me pause as I tried to look at like up and down, kind of projecting out how these franchises stack up. And, if we do see another Brady Manning type duel in the AFC for years to come, does that involve the Bills?
You can't say no, or you can't say yeah.
Right. Not right now. No, not after this.
Yeah. I mean, you could have. I mean, it could have been if they were to advance because it's been 2 or 3 years in a row that the Bills and Chiefs have faced off in the playoffs. Like we've seen it, but with the emergence of Joe Burrow and the Bengals and what happened last year and how Joe Burrow is yet to lose to the Chiefs, like.
Right.
That's what we're getting. So, I mean, yeah, I bet the under in that game, thanks to the healthy tip of like during the regular season, like betting the under in double-digit spreads. Yeah, it's like it hit like 90% or something stupid like that. So, of course, just me betting over-unders in the NFL. It just you had the stats last week. It was abysmal.
Right. I'm not sure the closing. Go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of abysmal, I didn't know if you had another point, but the Vikings' playoff hopes were abysmal.
I mean, they say, shy away from public dogs, but I think the Giants were. That was just the wrong team favorite the whole way. I think the Vikings at home, all the talk of, they're frauds, which I think may be a bit strong even still. 11-0 one-score games, which is what happens when your losses are all by 30-something points. I think there were clear warning signs. We all knew it. Daniel Jones has really.
I think everybody but the Vikings knew it.
Right. I think there's a bit to where they're kind of echo chamber. They were convinced that they were a contending team. The early Philly loss, the blowout Dallas loss that was literally taken off TV. But Daniel Jones really cementing his case for maybe the most improved quarterback in the NFL. And I think he deserves a ton of credit, and so does Brian Daboll. Year one on the job. I think this is extremely impressive, this Giants team. Very few people can name 3 receivers on this team, and the one you can name doesn't do anything for them. He's grossly overpaid, unfortunately, with the output he's giving them. But, I mean, Saquon
and probably
Barkley.
The one you used to be able to know is on the Chiefs.
Right, Kadarius Toney, very weird stuff off the field there, dynamic-wise with the team. I think it was better for both sides to part ways, and he's found a decent home in Kansas City.
Fast guy in the Chiefs offense, sure.
Right, I mean, he just wasn't playing for the Giants, and he was healthy. He was not healthy. There was a hamstring. It was very, very odd, and I think that, like I said, both parties benefited from a split there, and they made it happen midseason, so I credit to both of them for that. But just this Vikings team, this defense, Justin Jefferson, pretty quiet day. This Giants defense, excellent. Dexter Lawrence up front. Got some guys in the back end that have a lot of talent. Obviously, if you're limiting a receiver like Jefferson to all-pro.
Well, that roughing the passer call that he had
was
on him was
so
the
bad.
worst call I've ever seen in my life.
I would like to see officials that call that be fined for the amount of the call that they bring, because I think there's like a $15,000 fine, something like that, can be attached to these. I want to see officials get fined for that, because I guarantee you the miss rate on these will drop immediately if we start fining officials for it. And I'm not saying that, these officials are terrible, need to go to robots or anything, but I'm just saying these judgment calls would get a lot more clear if there's actual consequences on the other end for the officiating crews. And I think that there's always something every year. It's been catches, it's been PI, it's been a bunch of other stuff, but this year it's roughing the passer, and they've just got to fix it. And I guess I get not messing with it midseason because you kind of blur the lines and all that, but the competition committee or whatever they look to in the offseason, they have got to start day one, point one with this stuff, because thank goodness it didn't cost them the game, because it easily could have. It's a 15-yard penalty. A lot of times it happens on third downs, things like that. Joey Bosa got flagged for a referee chasing him down to get yelled at more. I've never seen that in my life. They fined him $50,000 in the end with all that.
I mean, the rest are just on a power trip. I mean, we see it.
I don't get it.
We saw it when Cam Newton was coming into his age. I think a ref said Trevor Lawrence was too young for that, or too young for those calls. That's just a load of horse shit. I'm sorry. If you're going to call the game fair with everybody. I mean, there's just a bad call. And it was, I think, unanimously noted that it was a bad call by just about every talking head on Twitter. Even athletes were out there. I think Von Miller tweeted about it. There's plenty of NFL players that were like, that's the worst call ever. Oh.
What's up, boys?
What up?
What are we talking about?
Just some of the wild card from last weekend.
Moving on to Ravens Bengals, we're joined by resident Bengals fan Jacob Nelson. Jacob, anything to say about your Bengals and a win over the Ravens that featured a 98-yard fumble return?
So, here's what I'll say about. I mean, speaking on this week only, not a great showing for the boys, but I really expect us to bounce back and beat, probably the Bills, probably like something 27-10. I got a real strong feeling that the boys will get it done. I'm not too worried about this week. We shed some sloppy things, whatever. But Josh Allen's a fraud, so I'm not worried about next week. He's kind of a bitch. And yeah, so the Bengals are hot. I've been on them now for 2 years. Yeah.
Moving to the Monday night game, I mean, that was just one of the more predictable games. Third string quarterback losing another close one, maybe not expected to be a one-score game. Sam Hubbard bringing the fumble back was the difference in a game that I honestly thought would be a 20-point game. So only real surprise there is the margin of victory, not the victor. And then the Cowboys actually won a playoff game, maybe retiring Tom Brady for forever.
I don't think he's going to Las Vegas.
I would welcome that with open arms, honestly.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, that Dallas looked good. Tampa did not. I mean, Brady threw his first, red zone interception for the first time in 400 snaps. So that kind of just killed the game for them.
Yeah, Graphic got him there a bit for that play, I believe. But, I mean, yeah, I don't think we ever expected the NFC champ whoever it was going to be, to beat a team like Dallas, who is honestly much better than their seed, but they just live the life of having a team just a bit better than them in Philadelphia in the same division. So I think that was going to be tough for any division champ, honestly, to see a team like the Cowboys, even at home. It's just as talented as the Cowboys are when they're not beating themselves. So I think, once again, Victor, not the surprise here, maybe margin of victory. I did not expect a 17-point victory from Dallas here, I'll admit it.
No.
This game closed at about 2.5 on the betting line, I believe, in favor of the road team. So
yeah, I took Dallas too, and that was like, that was easy.
Right. A lot of temptation to take Brady as a home dog in what may very well be his last playoff start. But him and Aaron Rodgers, once again, we have no idea what's going to happen. But, should we actually get decisions? And, of course, Brady had 2 decisions over the course of the last offseason, so it just adds to the mystery there. But, yeah, so that was last week. Pretty quick. Got some takeaways there. Now moving to the most recent set of games we all enjoyed this past weekend, down to 4 games because there's only so many teams left. So starting with Trevor Lawrence and the Clemson Jaguars, they went into Arrowhead, and they honestly, the Mahomes injury is what it is. High ankle sprain.
He came back and played, so you can't really.
Unfortunate. I'll give him credit for that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The slow-mo was what a lot of slow-mo ankles look like. It looked very, very painful, and he showed it immediately. So while he is the bane of my existence and my least favorite person on the planet, I will give him all the credit he deserves for coming back and playing that game, winning that game, even at home. And on the same note, I mean, the Jaguars are playing with house money here. I think that's pretty accepted. And they, lost by a TD. I think that's respectable. It wasn't a blowout as some predict. I think the spread was double digits, somewhere in that neighborhood.
It's like 9, I think.
Yeah, north of a touchdown. So I think that the Jags hung in. Their brand of football is they're going to be dangerous, and they're going to give you everything they have for 60 minutes. And I think we saw another example of that, just unfortunately not able to down a second AFC West opponent in consecutive weeks.
Yeah. What I was going to say is, hot take, I know Mahomes gets the storyline for winning that game, but I would say Isaiah Pacheco won that game for him. That dude was unstoppable. I mean, 95 yards rushing on 12 carries. He was just doing stupid stuff that whole game. And it's not fair that the Chiefs have that many weapons, and he's a rookie.
Right, 7th-round pick out of Rutgers. Buried a bit preseason. There's a lot of preseason buzz in the fantasy community about, what his, ceiling was for this year, and it kind of came on mid-season. The hype slowed a bit, and then he's just been ramping it back up for the playoffs. And I think that, I won't say they held him back intentionally, but if you had a secret weapon in the playoffs, he would be the guy across all the teams, honestly.
He'll get drafted early next year. He'll be RB2 easily.
Yes, especially dynasty drafts as well. I mean, I'm assumed he's owned anyway, but I think that's he will, even in redraft leagues, he will be a high draft pick because of how good this offense is and the volume of TDs that this offense scores. It's incredible on the season. The Chiefs lose Tyreek Hill, and Mahomes has better numbers. I just think that just speaks to him, Andy Reid, the whole coaching staff, and their ability to draft. Again, finding Pacheco in the 7th round, I believe, out of Rutgers this past draft. So, I mean, immediate impact, to say the least.
It also helps when you have another very highly drafted position player in the name of Travis Kelce, who is 98 yards for 2 tutters. Like, he's, I mean, me and my dad were talking like him, Kittle, and maybe Mark Andrews a little bit, but they're unstoppable. Like, it's not fair that they're that good at that position at that size. Like, if you have a good tight end, you're going to win games. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, we kind of saw that with Dallas too. I mean, what's his face? Schultz. I mean, he's a solid tight end. He had a couple touchdowns in the playoff. I mean, Vikings, their offense improved more when they got Hawkinson. I mean, that whole tight end U family is like improving the tight end game and obviously boosting the name brand, and then the play on the field is reflecting it too.
Right. I mean, you've got guys like Darren Waller in Vegas. His name's escaped me. Dawson Knox in Buffalo. There's tight end talent across the league.
Hurst.
Absolutely. Yeah, Hurst with a big touchdown to open the game, I believe. Dallas Goedert in Philly.
Yeah.
Another one. Hoping the Chargers can add to that fraternity through the draft this year because we ain't got it right now.
Evan Ingram didn't have a terrible year to his standards.
he had a career year by his standards.
Yeah.
I think that, on a $9 million deal, he was honestly underpaid for the production he gave them. I don't know what his future plans hold, but I'd imagine the way this 1 year stint went in Jacksonville that he will be open to continuing that stint as a Jaguar.
Speaking of production, for one Clemson individual, the production just kind of stopped abruptly during the middle of a game, and that was for Travis. He was running the ball at 6.5 yards a clip, basically, and then they just stopped running the ball. I knew they were down, but the running game was obviously working with him. It's just kind of like we've seen with Clemson, like running the ball with Will Shipley, and then they stopped. We saw it with the national championship game with Travis.
Right. I was about to say,
the ball.
Travis specifically down in New Orleans, close game at the half, and we just demanded the run, acted like we were just expecting to be down more anyway. Ended up losing by 17, but it was not a 17-point game the whole way.
Yeah.
And I think that the offensive struggles for Jacksonville started when the touches for Etienne stopped. I don't think it's a coincidence.
And that's nothing against Trevor either. The dude balled out.
No, absolutely not.
When the defense knows that a pass is coming, you're not going to run the ball. They're going to sit back in zone. They're going to drop 8, rush 3.
Yeah, it does not help.
Yeah, and he was 24 for 39, but only 217. Like he's throwing, 5 yards a clip basically.
Right.
So.
If you don't establish to run on the road, you're going to be in trouble. I don't care who you play. It could be week 3 against Tennessee. It doesn't matter. You're going to be in trouble, and they found that out the hard way. But, I'll say this. Doug Peterson, I don't think he's going anywhere. Thank goodness that guys of the caliber talent of Trevor
Lawrence. First year you make it to the division rounds. Yeah,
right.
You're not getting fired.
Which, to this point in Trevor's career, having a head coach in that position past week 11 was an accomplishment. So I think that it could not be said more how beneficial it is for him and the rest of the young guys, and even guys like Ingram, who may only be there a short time, to have a head coach who knows what the hell he's doing, is committed to the players on the field, not 20-year-olds in his restaurant off the field. I think that we've seen the leaps and bounds benefits it's had this year. And, you look at 9-8, you think, okay, that's fine. Average season now with the 17 games that we see in the regular season. But to win a playoff game, really 2, because that game against Tennessee in week 18 was a play-in game. That's more of an NBA thing, but I think it's fair to attribute that game as a playoff game, just the atmosphere itself, the intensity of that game. That was also decided by defensive score. So I think that key experience for the Jaguars going forward. Hopefully next year, you hope that they are able to host another wild card round game and then have better luck on the road as far as opponent, because going to Patrick Mahomes in your first road playoff start,
that's just nearly impossible.
Yeah, it's brutal.
If they keep their core of like receivers like Zay Jones, Kirk, Ingram, and they're gonna get Travis, and they get Calvin Ridley next year. Like, for God's sakes. They're probably missing 1 or 2 key pieces on the offensive line. Get some new guys, get some healthy guys. Then I would say it's just a heavy defensive draft, offensive line and then defensive draft. They got studs on defense too, but they have a couple secondary. They're not that far away, I'd say, from
and I think the drastic
more.
Improvement will help them also in free agency, which is an avenue they had to take and overpay, frankly. Christian Kirk has done great things this year. He did not play to the level of a 4-year, $84 million contract. That's extremely hard to do. It just speaks to where the receiver market was, where the Jaguars was as a team, and what it honestly, I think, I don't really know what to call it other than the being bad tax is what it was. But I think it was fair at the time for those players to be compensated for the risk of going to a team that drafted number 1 overall back-to-back years. And I think that the turnaround has been a great story all year, and that will certainly help them in free agency, I think, going forward.
Yeah. So with that, the Chiefs obviously are advancing to the championship game. The other game that we saw on Saturday was the number 1 seed Eagles versus the Giants, and that was about it. The Eagles are good.
For the degenerates out there like myself, if you see Boston Scott anytime touchdown odds against the New York Giants, I don't care if it's minus 500, to take it. He was plus 300 in week 18, scored. He was plus 325 on Saturday and scored. I think 11 of his 18 career touchdowns, somewhere in that neighborhood, are against the Giants. It makes no sense. I think it's to the point where the team is aware of it, so that helps. Obviously, I'm not of the belief these games are fixed, but I think if they get down inside the 3-yard line, you could risk the health of your MVP caliber quarterback. or give the guy who scores every game and it's hilarious. So I think that at some point we've got to acknowledge that all parties are aware of this, and the Giants could not stop it. So I think that I was surprised to see this score. I know the spread was a healthy one in favor of Philadelphia at home. I think the Giants, seeing a team 3 times is tough, but beating a team 3 times is even tougher. We saw a tight game week 18 with the Giants doing what you should do when your seed is clinched and not playing your starters. Shout out to me not being able to watch Mike Williams in the playoffs. But I think that this is more about the Eagles than the Giants. Similar to Jacksonville, the Giants, win a big game opening round in the playoffs. They actually went on the road and beat a division champ in Minnesota. But you go to the best team in your conference next game, and I mean, this was a 31-point game. I figured maybe 20 points, somewhere in that neighborhood, but this game got out of hand very quickly. 28 zip at the half, and that was essentially the end of it. I think Daniel Jones is capable of a lot more than he has in years past, but coming back from 28 down against, in my opinion, the best team in the NFL is not in his repertoire whatsoever.
Yeah. I watched this game, but like, it's just background noise kind of. It just got so bad.
It was 14-0 extremely quickly.
I was really, really hoping that the over would hit, but once again, I got bit in the ass. So,
yeah,
there's that.
So, yeah, that was this past Saturday. In my opinion, the best team in the AFC, best team in the NFC, both advancing at home. Moving to Sunday, one of the more hyped games. Great football weather. It was snowing, so to all the Dome folks, I hope you watched that game and realized how awesome it is to watch playoff football in the snow. A lot of examples in Foxborough, but they are garbage now, so we do not get that example very often anymore. But Jacobs Bengals went into Buffalo, a place that changed the overtime rules to accommodate the Bills not being able to get past the divisional round, and they did avoid overtime this year because they lost by 17 points.
Which is fair. The first score NFL rule's always been dumb, but
I agree. It's
you're
funny
not going to do it you're not going to be able to use it when you lose by 17. Sorry, Bills.
No. When your opponent scores more in the first quarter than you do in all 4 quarters, then you will not have to worry about overtime because you will not be participating in it. I mean, these Bengals, slow start. We saw the very weird week 1 game against the Steelers. Like, okay, Super Bowl hangover. The Rams had it and did not shake it. The Bengals had it and shook it off quickly and violently. 12-4 regular season. Unfortunately, the last matchup between these two teams was canceled because of Damar Hamlin's injury, which he's thankfully recovering from well. Was able to be in the stadium on Sunday. I am so sick and damn tired.
This is the stupidest thing ever. Like,
I want these people institutionalized. I'm so tired of this.
Yeah. I said it in the group that if the NFL is doing this whole body double crap, then everybody behind this, the Bills and the NFL, should be jailed for eternity. Like, it would be the most disgraceful thing ever to be pulling this stunt.
Yes, I agree 100%. Now, while that's a possibility, it is as remote possibilities get, and it is frankly not true, and it's ridiculous. And I think that the people who get on TikTok and Twitter and whatever other social media, they do so namelessly, because I guarantee you if employers or higher-ups saw some of the crap they were talking about this, they would have a lot more time to tweet and TikTok because they would be unemployed, because I don't know of an employer or really anyone in the country that wants to be attached to something so stupid. And I really hope that the Hamlin family has been insulated from it, because it's sickening, honestly. I think these people should be, again, locked in padded cells and have no internet connection for the rest of their lives. I don't care if we put them all in a ship and send them out to find new planets. I don't care. I'm so tired of this. And it's gotten worse, I swear, as the week goes on, and he is not giving these people what they want, which is a press conference of some sort. I don't know. He owes no one anything. I think it's just scary to see a vocal minority ruining what has been a great movement. His toy drive got like $9 million, which is going to be huge for communities all over the place as he's able to help them out with financial support. And I think that on his own time, he will come forward and he'll speak to media and he'll do all these things. I wouldn't be surprised to see him like Good Morning America or something like that. But he's got a long road to recovery ahead of him. Thankfully, he was able to be in the stadium Sunday, you really couldn't see him. That really put into perspective how much the snow was coming down was when they panned to him up in the box, still bundled up because it was, I don't even know, something negative degrees probably, but it was just the snow was pouring down.
Yeah.
So, again, we got sidetracked a bit there. I just wanted to get that out of how just mind-numbingly stupid that is. And I think that, again, 99% of it is people that aren't putting a face to it because I think deep down they know how ridiculous it is. So, unfortunately, that is a storyline to come out of this game, is that some of the stupidest people on the planet have somehow crawled to social media and have typed out garbage like that. But thankfully, it is a minority, like I mentioned. And 99.5% of the stuff about Damar Hamlin has been support, which is what it should be.
Yeah. All I'm going to say is it's stupid. But other than that, the game was pretty much over at the beginning. Like,
yeah, you can't spot Joe Burrow 14 points. You just can't do it.
And they just came out and they dogged them. I mean, they were clearly the better team. And the Bengals just had that that kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Demeanor. Like, they were just like, we don't care that it's a home playoff game. We don't care. As bad as it sounds, we don't care that DeMar's there. We don't care that you're about to go play Atlanta. Obviously, I mean, Joe Burrow said after the game, pull those receipts for all the fans that bought tickets and hotel rooms to Atlanta for the
get the refunds out.
Yeah. So it's just got to go out and play, and the Bills obviously did not. We talked about it earlier. Disappointing into the season for the third straight year.
Yeah, again, it's just a cycle. And at what point is it really the dialogue behind this Bills team is they can get you to the divisional round, and then that's it. Because, like you mentioned before, we will see a rematch in the AFC Championship game. It will be Joe Burrow heading to Patrick Mahomes. And also, like you mentioned, Joe Burrow 3-0 against the Chiefs in his career and will have a chance to make it for this Sunday. Just quick slate show note. This line opened at the Chiefs laying a point, I believe, at home with Mahomes' ankle in question. And it is now moved to the Bengals -2.5 on the road. It's a very interesting line move. I think hurts, excuse me. Mahomes' ankle status has a lot to do with it. I think his mobility is going to be compromised. We saw that happen in a Super Bowl, sadly, and Tampa Bay was able to take advantage of that. And so I think that, there's precedent there, unfortunately, with him and his ankle. And, what makes him so great is his ability to audible and, scrap a play and make a run for it. We saw that incredible hand on the ground, tap the pylon touchdown a couple weeks ago from him. So I don't think that part of his game is going to be there at all, honestly, with a high ankle sprain. Playing 8 days later, hopefully he's able to play at all, even though we saw the backup, whose name escapes me, going on a 90-something yard drive anyway. Not
Chad Henne.
Yeah, Chad Henne going length of the field for a touchdown drive that was super impressive. Hopefully they won't need his services anymore, but we should be in for another great game. That Bengals game, Chiefs game last year, it came down to the wire. Thrilling finish there, and I'd expect nothing less from the rematch.
Yeah. You said that they were a underdog at home. I'm going to go ahead and I went ahead and placed a wager. I'm hoping that Mahomes plays. So
I think he will. It's just a question of what version of Mahomes do we get.
So
I mean,
that's why I went ahead and just put a little something on him. So
right. I mean, he's the best quarterback in the NFL just because of the number of ways he has to beat you, and unfortunately, he will be without one. Very likely in his ability to be mobile in and out of the pocket. Take runs, really good about extending the football, getting that extra couple of feet. But yeah, like we said, I think he'll play. It's just a question of, will he be Mahomes? I don't know. I question that. But I mean, if you're getting points with it at home, it's a little bit like Brady. People kind of jump into it, but I think this Chiefs team is much better than the Tampa team that saw kind of limp into the postseason. So very interesting line dynamic there, I think.
Bet early, bet often.
There you go. Last game of the night, the Cowboys played the closing game of the NFL weekend once again, and this time it did not go in their favor as Brock Purdy picks up playoff win number 2 in 2 tries. And the Niners won. I'll say they won ugly. There was not a lot of touchdowns scored in this game. Brett Maher, The extra point
It's the
was going to
yips.
go 40 feet left. It
it's
was
the
blocked. He did recover and make 2 field goals, so I'll give him that credit. But this loss was not on him whatsoever.
No. I said in the group chat that the game was so bad it was good. Like, it was one of the most ugliest games that I've seen. Yeah. I mean, Dak had 200 yards passing. Granted, that Tony Pollard went out. They only had 76 yards rushing.
Right, but that changed their whole
yeah.
They were dead in the water offensively after that happened, unfortunately.
But Ray McLeod, obviously, he had a fumble. The offensive numbers for the 49ers weren't bad. They had a total, 113 rushing yards, 214 passing yards. But, God, that game was just back and forth of just dumb mistakes.
Right.
And we started to see a little bit of that youth from Brock Purdy. I think it was going into halftime or late in the game, and he scrambled a little bit too much or threw the ball away. Going into halftime when they kicked the field goal, he threw the ball away and it got out with 1 second left.
Right.
So we saw some youth, and then I think Elijah Mitchell had a big run, and then he ran out of bounds instead of cutting back inside to save time.
That gave Dallas the ball back.
Yeah. Yep. Outside of Christian McCaffrey's touchdown, Robbie Gould had 1, 2, 3, 4 field goals. So 2 touchdowns and a combined of 1, 2, 4, 6. Quick maths. 6 field goals.
Robbie Gould, of note, has yet to miss a kick, extra point, or field goal in his postseason career. They flashed that graphic 11,000 times. Did not matter. Still true. From one of them was 50 yards. I was impressed by that one. But Niners at home stay rolling, and they will go to the Eagles next week. This line, I believe, is sitting Philly -2.5. I had to say offhand. I haven't looked at it lately, but not nearly as much movement as we've seen from the AFC matchup, thankfully. Not a lot of injuries to note that I can think of, at least sitting here on Tuesday. So should be a great game. Brock Purdy has a chance to keep going one of the better rookie runs ever, honestly. I realize it's abbreviated because he was QB3, and it took 2/3 of the season for them to need him. But I think that what he's done in relief of Lance and Garoppolo has been incredible. Really, really good story. Mr. Irrelevant last year's draft. We last saw him in college lose to Clemson in a Cheez-It Bowl. So I think that
he looked bad in that game too.
Oh yeah, he was. Yeah, that version of Brock Purdy we have yet to see.
Yeah,
and maybe we get the stinker in Philadelphia. I don't think anyone really fault him. They've kind of entered Jaguars territory as far as the QB position is concerned and playing with house money. This Niners defense is championship caliber, absolutely. But I just question, can they avoid the Brock Purdy rookie game forever? And he's he's 8 quarters away from being a Super Bowl champion.
He's running out of room to have that game.
Oh, there's no more margin of error. No. They could have done that against Seattle, maybe last week, but no. If it happens in Philadelphia or on a neutral site against the Chiefs or the Bengals, then they will not come out on the right side unless Chris McCaffrey has 160 all-purpose yards or something like that.
Which that's probably who they're going to rely on. This might be the most hostile.
Oh, Philly's going to be. Yeah.
No, it's the worst. He's since he started, he's been at home against Miami, at home against Tampa, at Seattle, which 12th man, great, but the team is not great.
Right.
They saw that again. Home versus Washington, away at the Raiders, and I'm pretty sure the 49ers took over that stadium. And then at home against the Cardinals, they didn't face many tough away opponents on the road. Yeah. So,
and they likely won't if they advance Sunday, but the Philly environment will be the most hostile by a mile. I think
it's probably the most hostile in the league. That spread is sitting at 2.5 in favor of the Eagles. I was about to say the Phillies. Already getting into baseball mode, but you could say it's 1 and 2 versus 1 and 2. I would put the Bengals at the second seed. I know they were technically the third seed, but we never really knew what was going to happen that one game. So I'd give them the second seed. It's the 4 best teams, I would say.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the 2 best QBs in the AFC face off, and we're seeing the best QB in the NFC. Yeah, Best offense,
Probably
best
two of
defense.
the best offenses facing off NFC.
Right. Explosive offense has got them to this point. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of that this coming Sunday with these two matchups. I will say that Philly and San Francisco, those are really, really good defense. I think the Niners, maybe the best defense in the NFL. I'm not sure what the metrics say. I'm just looking at eye test, honestly, and what I've seen in general. But I think that I don't know if either game goes under. I think that some youth from Brock Purdy would bring that NFC game under. But if Chiefs Bengals is a race to 40, I can't say I'd be surprised, honestly. I think defense will prevail. Sam Hubbard's fumble return, I won't say got the Bengals here, but it gave them the win against Baltimore. So that defense has already shown an ability to make plays in crunch time. So they're going to need some more of that against Mahomes, regardless of his ankle status.
Yeah. So I think, like we said, it's going to be two great games. And unfortunately, it's the second to last Sunday of NFL football,
right,
or football till August.
We won't see another home crowd until early August. Yeah.
We get the USFL and XFL.
That's true. Yeah, we got some stuff on the side now, some revived leagues that'll give us some entertainment while we wait until, I guess, immediate future spring games, things like that with college football, but then getting into the fall and actually lining up teams and playing. It will be a long layoff, as it always is.
I felt like we just had the Hall of Fame game.
Oh, I know. It flies by, unfortunately. But yeah, this is the 21st week of NFL action, so it has been a long road. We're down to 4 teams. Repeat of last year's semifinals, except for we've got
the Eagles, except for the Eagles.
Eagles instead of the Rams. So
yeah,
just interesting note there as far as people saying the NFL and parity and all that, and then when you match them up, it's the same teams.
Tom Fernelli was saying, as like the very end of the Cover 3 podcast on Sunday, he said like 3 of the 4 teams from last year's final or semifinals or whatever is in the finals again, divisional round, conference champion, whatever you want to call it. It goes to show you that we need to expand the playoffs. So take that to know. It's so funny. I was dying.
Yeah, we need a 16-team NFL playoff because why have 7 seeds? You can have 8. Yeah, so that's a recap of the second weekend, most recent NFL matchups we saw. And as far as getting into the prediction business, let's go with, I believe the AFC plays first. So we'll start there. Who do you think wins? Excuse me, NFC plays first.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll start there. We'll go chronological. Niners, Eagles. Who do you think wins this game? Wins. We'll take spread out of it for now.
I know neither team's quarterback has much playoff experience. But the Eagles have been shit. I don't know. I think it's going to be the home environment. It's going to be too much for Brock Purdy. And that offense is just different with Jalen Hurts, and it obviously runs so much better. Give me the Eagles.
Yeah, I'll go home team too. I've been on the train of thought that this Eagles team has been the best team in the NFL for a vast majority of this NFL season, even early on when the winning streak first started, and we were kind of like, okay, how long is this going to last? Are they fool's gold like Minnesota? But then they won that head-to-head matchup pretty convincingly early in the season on that Monday night, I believe, doubleheader. So I think that, they've proven it all year long. 2 of these losses happened with Minshew. I won't put much stock in that because they have Hurts back for when they want him, which is the playoffs. I think week 17, 18, no one cares about that anyway. But, yeah, I've got to take the Eagles. I think that it's not solely because of Brock Purdy. I just think that, like we've mentioned a couple of times, he can't play clean football forever. And if he's going to play mistake, I guess I won't say prone, but if he's going to have playoff mistakes, it is going to happen in an environment like this in Philadelphia. I don't know if we'll get any snow in either matchup this weekend. I'm looking at weather in the mid-30s, so maybe there's some ingredients there for some more winter weather. But I think regardless of the weather, honestly, Purdy and Iowa State guys, so I wouldn't put too much emphasis on that. But I think that the Eagles do prevail at home, and it may be super ugly. We may have to see a kick at the end of this game. Robbie Gould, like I mentioned before, is yet to miss a postseason kick. So if they need to lean on him for 3 points, it's very, very likely they'll get it. This Niners team has been there, done that several times, maybe not at the quarterback position, but the coaching staff, big majority of those players, they were just here last year. So I think that experience-wise, honestly, edge Niners. But I think just what we've seen this season, I can't get off this Philly train now.
Yeah. I'm right there with you.
Moving to the nightcap that was generously scheduled at 6:30 for those of us that
that was awesome.
Our 5. Yeah, I love
they
that.
They did
Sunday.
that Monday. Sunday. I was like, this is awesome. That game was over at like 9 o'clock. I got to go to bed at a reasonable hour.
Right. Yeah, I was a big fan of that. So shout out to Goodell for getting something right. But the last home crowd that we will see this NFL season will be in Kansas City. It will be Mahomes on some extent of an injured ankle. We don't know yet how they can heal him in 8 days. We have yet to determine. I doubt he will be much involved in practice this week. So yeah, Bengals Chiefs. Does Burrow do it again?
Can we do picks solely on if Mahomes plays?
You can qualify. Go ahead. He'll play. I guarantee he's gonna play.
Yeah, I mean, I already placed a bet for them to win, so I'm going with the Chiefs. I mean, I think an 80% Mahomes is better than 100%, like 50% of the quarterbacks in this league.
It's more than that. I think he's better than 2/3 of the league instantly. So I agree with that.
I mean, both teams obviously have their weapons, but both teams have solid defense. It comes down to the home team, home atmosphere, like he said. I mean, the Bengals went in there last year and proved that they could do it, and obviously won last second field goal. But yeah, give me the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think a lot of weeks we've had a lot of picks in tandem, so I'll veer from consensus here. I'm going to go Cincinnati, and I hate to really pin this on one tackle from this past week that's led me to this belief. I truly think with 100% Patrick Mahomes, I'm very tough to imagine any team going in there in this point of the season beating them twice in a row, consecutive years at home to reach the Super Bowl. But I think with Mahomes injured, again, we've seen it in the playoffs before, with Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl. Equally unfortunate in this case as well. These high ankle sprains do not go away soon, certainly not in a week or 8 days, whatever you want to call it. I just think that it would be not giving the Bengals enough credit to be able to win this game as they did last year with Mahomes healthy. Certainly not. If he was banged up, it wasn't to this extent at all. I think that the line moves a bit too much, I think. I still think Kansas City it should be a pick 'em, honestly, I think. I think Kansas City with 100% Mahomes should be 1-2, maybe 2.5 point favorites, somewhere in that neighborhood. I guess we've seen some buyback with the Chiefs here with that line getting a 2.5 in favor of Cincinnati, but I still think that this Bengals team has showed us all year that was not a one-off last year. I just struggled to say that I can truly depend on Mahomes just with the extent of injury he does have to pick them to beat Cincinnati. I mean, that being said, I think turnovers are going to play a huge role in this. I don't know that either team can really afford to give the ball away, especially in their own territory with how good both these offenses are. Mahomes' injury aside, they're going to score points, I think. Two, I guess, underrated slightly defenses. I mean, Chris Jones for Kansas City is a game wrecker. Our guy DJ Reader up front for the Bengals does similar things for them. Sam Hubbard has had a huge impact on their playoff run already. I think he'll have multiple plays in this game as well. They're going to help them out a ton. So I think Cincinnati, and I expect 2 thrillers, honestly. And I'm honestly, as a fan, unfortunately neutral because my Chargers got eliminated. But I think that these will prove to be 2 of the better, if not best, games of the playoffs. So give me the give the Eagles and the Bengals.
Eagles, Bengals, Eagles, Chiefs. So last two weeks of football, so might as well make them good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you remember yours offhand, but my Super Bowl prediction of the Chargers and the Buccaneers officially died. I didn't get either team into the last game of the season. I did have Tampa Bay beating San Francisco in the NFC Championship game, so I'll give myself partial credit there.
I'll have to go back and listen.
I think you were a Bills guy, if I remember right.
I think I was Bills. I don't remember who had it. I might have had Niners in it. No.
Rams, maybe? We'll look it up. We'll tweet it.
Yeah, I got note. That was so long ago. We need to write those down next year.
They're somewhere. We will tell on ourselves via Twitter at the 1009. So if you're interested in how badly we missed these Super Bowl predictions or how close some of us came, we will have that tweeted out before this weekend. But yeah, so that's everything NFL. Anything else heading into conference championship weekend?
I got nothing.
All right. We'll quickly get through a couple more major sports here. The NBA, Bailey Black's Sacramento Kings are 27-19.
I've
And
watched
even though
every
he
single
bet
game.
he bet against them last night, they won by 30. They are moving. They've won 7 out of 10. It's one of the better stories of the year. Mike Brown doing an incredible coaching job. De'Aaron Fox, the best clutch player in the NBA this season. They just created an award, I believe the Jerry West Clutch Award, that will be given at the end of the regular season. So I think he's the front runner for that, as well as my guy, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But even as a biased Thunder fan, I think it's Fox's award to lose at this point, and we could be talking all NBA nods for him or Sabonis. Big piece down low for them. They didn't have to give up Tyrese Halliburton, but I think this is a rare trade where both teams win. Obviously, Halliburton and his Pacers clinging to a play-in spot with Halliburton out. I think they're 0-6 without him, so that just speaks to how valuable he is. And again, Sabonis playing incredibly well in Sacramento this season as well. Could I have told you at this point in the season that the Denver Nuggets would be the 1 seed in the West?
I would believe it.
Yeah, a lot of preseason buzz. I didn't quite buy into it as much as some other people did. And I think I was on the wrong side of that because here they sit 33-14, followed by Memphis, and then the Kings sit at the 3 spot. Still 3.5 games back in Memphis, despite the big head-to-head win last night. Zion and the Pelicans, or I should say the Pelicans, because Zion has been out lately, and Brandon Ingram has been out an extended period of time with a toe injury, unfortunately, but they're still plugging along, hanging around that territory where you host a playoff series to start. I think that'd be incredible for the Pelicans organization. We've been dying to see Zion in meaningful games. He's been injured a lot, unfortunately, as has his counterpart at the top of that roster in Brandon Ingram. So hopefully get some healthy Pelicans basketball very soon. The Thunder are hell-bent on making the play-in. This rebuild has gone ahead of schedule. This is year 2.5, honestly, of the rebuild. So it's been exciting to watch. We actually beat Denver the other night with Jokic not playing, but I'm going to leave that part out conveniently. We're only the 4th team to win in Denver. So
what was it, a couple weeks ago that I hit that bet? I forgot what game it was. I got a free bet and then I put it all on the Thunder to cover.
Oh, we were playing the Pacers. Yeah. That game started 17-1. Never looked back. Big win for us. Unfortunately, did not get to see Halliburton in that game, but that benefited the Thunder and Bailey because we won by a ton. So they have been rolling. Big week for us this week. I think we see the Cavs, the Warriors, and there's another contending team I'm forgetting. But this will be a big litmus test for this team, as usually this time of year we're shutting down SGA and Dort for some maintenance type stuff just to keep them fresh for the next season. But I think those days are behind the Thunder, as they truly look like a play-in contender, and they're currently tied with the Warriors and Timberwolves in the games back column as I look at it here. But unlike the Warriors, we are not 6-18 on the road, so that has helped us a lot. Quickly out east, to the surprise of some, with the coaching drama that happened early on, the Celtics find themselves at 35-13. That's best in the East and best record in the league. They're followed by the Sixers, the Bucks, who are just now starting to get healthy, getting Chris Middleton back and Giannis as well. The ever-fascinating Brooklyn Nets follow them, and then the Cleveland Cavaliers close out the top 5 in the East. Any surprises there from you at this point in the season in the Eastern Conference?
No, I mean, the Celtics kind of screwed me last night. So I'm going to leave that at that. I mean, it's the top 3 teams that pretty much everybody expected beginning of the year. I mean, top 4, honestly. So no real surprises. Obviously, the Hornets suck, being the local team. But yeah, shout out to my Kings. I need to get a shirt. I need to get something from them.
Need something.
Yeah,
I mean, shout out to my guy, Trevor Everett of the 2 Pointers podcast. I actually just hopped on it last night and talked some midseason awards with him. That'll be out later in the week, and I'll be sure to promote that so you guys can catch me talking NBA in depth. But he's got a light behind him that can change colors, and he lit that thing purple, and it looks awesome. So
like the beam.
Exactly. So that's been another fun storyline with Bailey's Kings throughout the first half, technically, of the NBA season. They're past the halfway point in games played, but they are quickly approaching the All-Star break, which is seen as the true middle. So moving from a quick NBA recap to a quicker MLB news whip around, Carlos Correa, third time is the charm. He is back with the Twins. $200 million deal, I believe. He's able to finally find a home permanently. First signed with the Giants, then the Mets, and now has gone full circle, literally, back to the Minnesota Twins. So interesting kind of saga there. I am happy for him in the fact that he actually knows where he's playing baseball next year and has financially secured himself another deserved contract. Some questions on the ankle that caused 2 NL teams to balk, so he finds himself back in the AL with the Twins. Have we really ever seen anything like this as far as a free agent and the money that was at stake here, this caliber of player?
Not with the amount of teams that backed out. I mean, we've seen teams back out of physical or whatever, and then the guy just goes back to the team that he was with. With the amount of money, I think he signed the offseason for a total of $800-something million.
Oh, it was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Between the 3 contracts, and he ends up going back to the team where he originally was with, and now he has no more opt-out options for the rest of his contract.
Right.
So, because I think his original contract with the Twins was like he got an opt-out for every season.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah.
I mean, his agent's obviously, what's his face? Boris, who is a genius and knows how to work his magic. But once I saw something with the Mets about concerns about a physical, I knew they were going to not sign him because they did that with Kumar Rocker. We've seen it before.
Right, yeah.
I mean, they're going to go out and spend the money, but I guess not unless you're perfectly healthy for them. Stevie Cohen likes to send out all the money, but not when it matters most.
It is conditional, as we found out. They still have unlimited money because they inked into it initially, but I think that it's unfortunate. I'm glad now that we've kind of capped that off and he's got a home to play ball in, ankle concerns aside. I think he's one of the better players at his position in the league, and it's not surprising to still see him land big bucks in free agency.
Yeah. One other thing before we get into the news that came out of baseball today.
Yeah.
Sort of news in baseball. I saw something earlier, scrolling. Brian McCann and Mark Teixeira are stepbrothers.
I'd have never guessed that in my life.
Apparently, Teixeira's dad met Brian McCann's mom while they were playing for the Yankees. And McCann said, "We play golf, we hang out, we see each other at holidays. It's great." They had the wedding at my house. It was a little crazy. So I saw that just popped up on my Twitter earlier. I was like, what the hell? 2 former Braves. Let that be known.
Right.
So just a funny little thing before we get into some Hall of Fame announcements. And the first one's
not the first name I expected to hear about.
It's many are saying. I mean, I believe it's controversial. I mean, it's a name, but he's not he was a great player, but like I don't think he was.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have gotten in ahead of Andrew Jones or etc.
Right.
The name is Scott Rowland. He's the name of all names. Obviously, Cardinals legend.
Yep.
But I mean,
at third
he wasn't
base.
the best. Like I saw something that said, let me see. It was Scott Rowland played 17 seasons and by MVP voting was considered a top 13 player in his league once by many of the same writers that voted him a Hall of Famer. So, just weird. I mean, props to him for getting into the Hall of Fame, but just a weird entry.
Yeah. I was hopeful to see Andrew Jones's name. I'm sure you were as well. I think that's one that is deserved.
If he doesn't get in now, he'll get in with the veteran committee.
Right. The kind of pecking order and the idea that you have to wait for a certain ballot to make the Hall of Fame, I think is ludicrous. I don't think that past mistakes should dictate future ones. I think that's what's happening with Andrew Jones now. So I hate that these guys who put in legendary careers are put in limbo because of the egos of the sports writers who decide this. I'm glad there's been a bit of a push to make these votes public, so maybe some shame alters into this, and we get some more accurate voting. But also there are the holdouts that are just hell-bent on putting their emphasis on it in whatever way they see fit, regardless of what the actual logic would lead you to do, which is to put Andrew Jones in the Hall of Fame. So it's tough.
One thing that pisses me off the most with the Hall of Fame voters are the ones that don't send in. They send in a ballot with no one selected. Like, what? You're literally wasting people's time. Like, that's like taking, if you have a Heisman vote and you just send in nobody. Like, what's the point? What's the point in it? If you do that, then you should have, like, get the ability taken away from you. I don't care who you are. If you don't send in a vote for something that you're asked to vote on, no matter who the guy is, swallow your pride and vote for him.
And again, it's more for personal attention than any actual service to the game itself, which is the whole reason they're doing it, which is the most frustrating part, in my opinion. I think that I mean, we let everybody in the Hall of Fame. That's across all sports. I don't know what the numbers are as far as acceptance rate, but it's got to be higher in modern times. And I think that, again, if you just want to bring it to a screeching halt, fine, but there's better ways to do it than an actual blank ballot, because that's just ridiculous. There's never a year in which no candidate, first year or otherwise, is not up for the Hall of Fame, because, you know, with each passing year, each passing generation, there's guys that you think of immediately, guys like Andrew Jones, and some guys that you think, you know, there's a case, but you don't expect them to be the first name you hear, guys like Scott Rowland. I mean, there's always names that deserve to be in. Of course, steroids clouded that a bit. There's names that should obviously be in. There's also baggage attached to it, and how much of that do you want in the Hall of Fame? So there's several different reasons why certain guys should not be in the opinions of some, but to have a blank ballot, I think, is just absurd.
Yeah. And I'm a Braves guy, but Barry Bonds' career before steroids was a Hall of Fame career.
Right. I think you're able to separate the two. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, even then, I'll still give it to him, a Hall of Fame with his on steroids. It made the game better. I don't care who you are. I know he cheated.
That's why they did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was McGuire and Sosa before him, so I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Baseball Hall of Fame is the most effed up system out there.
Right. To act like baseball didn't turn a blind eye to it for years is just, it's just not true. It's simply not true. I mean, it revived baseball, and that's why they let it happen. And now you're going to turn face and say that, no, it's disgracing the game. We can't have it in the Hall of Fame, even though it's a sieve at this point as far as who's let in. So I think that's just another frustrating note, at least on my end.
Yeah, I agree with that. So who else is still eligible?
Every year I mean to find an accurate source because it is a long list, I'm sure, especially with the now almost tradition of blank ballots every year. It's just that much tougher.
Microsoft Excel. Oh, Todd Helton was the other one this year.
Okay.
He got 78% of the votes, so he's in. This was updated as of today at 15:05 p.m. Oh. Anyway, so Scott Rowland, obviously, Todd Helton, 78%. Guys that are close, you got Billy Wagner at 72.5%. This was updated as of today. Andrew Jones is at 66%. Gary Sheffield, another former Brave, at 62%. Carlos Beltran still at 53%, which is surprising considering how his career ended.
Right.
I would say that was a little bit more, would be a little more knock on your resume compared to steroids.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look at Alex Rodriguez, who's sitting at 38%. So there's some names, and then some of the guys that were first year ballots was kind of like, oh my God, I remember watching these guys. Like,
right, we're getting the guys
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like R.A. Dickey, Mike Napoli, John Lackey, Jacoby Ellsbury, Matt Cain.
Lackey and Napoli's crazy.
Yeah.
At least for me.
Houston Street, Torrey Hunter.
I think all of those guys played the Angels at one point.
Bronson Arroyo.
We might have missed him, but I think that, Lackey winning the World Series as a rookie, the impact he had on that championship, it's just crazy how old that makes me feel now. Mike Napoli had a good stint as well before he went to the hated Red Sox. Houston Street had a year. He was hurt, but Torrey Hunter had a great stint with the Angels as well, one of my favorite players growing up. So it's cool to see these guys getting recognized. I don't know that I see many first ballot names on there, which, again, that whole term, it's kind of stupid, honestly. But, a lot of those guys, I think, should get in ultimately, whenever egos permit them to, whatever ballot they feel they deserve to get in on, I think they should get in ultimately.
I agree. I mean, specifically want to see Andrew Jones. Fred McGriff finally got in last year, which should have been 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago.
Right. Just made him wait too long. Yeah.
So, you got anything else?
I think that's it. We walked you through the first week of NFL playoff action. We got you through a couple days ago. We saw 4 more games in the NFL. We previewed the 2 we've got this coming weekend. Quick little NBA aside and some baseball. Last baseball note, Artie Moreno is not selling the Angels. So baseball's Jerry Jones decided at the last second not to sell the team because he just thinks he can ruin it that much more. So that's just fantastic news for me, a lifelong pain-filled Angels fan, as he will surely find a way to. And I'll give him credit for wanting to be an active owner, but at the same time, if you suck at it, then you probably shouldn't do it. Shout out to them Cowboys. So I think that's just perfect. The only bit of offseason news I wanted was an Ohtani extension and the team being sold, and it looks like I will be over 2 on that. So
yeah, you're gonna have a Freddie Freeman season this year, so have fun with that.
Well, that ended with the World Series, so I will take it.
It's a good point.
If
Braves,
that's
Angels,
the road
World
we need
Series.
to go down, fine. He can be a Dodger if he wins the World Series this year. I do not care. But yeah, so that's a bit of last week in sports, this week in sports, and with everything else, we'll keep you guys updated from what happens this week. We did skip over Clemson offensive coordinator talk. We touched on it within the Slate Show. You can find that on our Twitter at the 1009 as well, on YouTube, the 1009 podcast, and then Apple and Spotify. It's up there as well. It's denoted in the title.
Speaking of Clemson, basketball team's still hot. I'm still rolling with them. They played tonight against Georgia Tech. Slipped up the other night against, who was it? Wake Forest on the road, but like Wake Forest has won like 20-something games in a row at home.
Right.
So no knock against them. First loss of the season in conference play. Dropped us to 24 from 19. So that just goes to show you how much the AP cares about or thinks that what this team actually is. I think this team's good. Still a lot more season to show. Obviously with conference play heating up and then the conference tournament. So a lot more to see from the Fighting Brownells.
Yeah, I mean, this marks the halfway point of the ACC slate, and we could emerge from it 9-1, which hot seat me. I did not see coming, but truthfully, no one did. I think that the Fire Brownell voices have now been silenced. I think that even myself being at the front of that bandwagon, I've decided to pump the brakes on that quite a bit as we see the continued success of this team.
Yeah.
Veteran team, really a 180 from the trend now, one and done, things like that. You see John Shire kind of lost with a lot of his talent that will be there for weeks, not years. So it's nice to see a team. And Miami's actually had a team like this, like 2015, 2016, somewhere in there. They had a bunch of older guys that, kind of gelled perfectly, and they had a great run. So hopefully we see the same thing down in Clemson. Like I said, this is the halfway point of the ACC slate, and they have a great chance as pretty big favorites tonight, I'd imagine. They're late tip, 9 o'clock Eastern. Yeah, so maybe get some guards back healthy, although hopefully, we don't need them too much to get past the Georgia Tech team. That's pretty disappointing throughout the year, but it is Brad Brownell, so you never know.
Yeah. Don't always get your hopes too high.
Right, that roller coaster does come down, I promise.
I was waiting for that slip up, and I knew once I submitted, I bet on Clemson last week, and once I submitted, I'm like, I just read our death wish, so.
Yeah. Also, last note on college basketball, the net is stupid as shit and should never, ever be brought up again. I'm so tired of it. Net rankings, we beat Virginia Tech twice. They sit above us in the net. That is one example of dozens that has William Qualkenbush standing in studio screaming about it. So I encourage you to find those clips if you can. It's very entertaining because he's right. And you're pretty much yelling at nothing because the NCAA will not tell us how it is formulated. So we do not know. And if it's created much like the AP poll just to piss people off, then bravo, because it works.
Yeah. So that's college basketball. We touch on it all the time.
We got everything this week. So that's all we got.
Yep. You know where to find us. So deuces.
Subscribe.